I guess some people say, well, this is a big cop-out. But I think next year is going to be a year of extremes.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be Melbatos, middle, a plus 2% year. It's either going to be, we had some defining moment.
Yeah.
And some things about defining moments, like nobody would have really understood where COVID would have taken us, right? And that defining moment could be really bad or it could be really good.
Right. Welcome to Momentum with Sidekick, the podcast where we explore what's shifting in business and in leadership and what that means for leaders like us right here and right now. Nora can't make it today, so I'm sitting here with Mark Harrison. Welcome. Mark is an award-winning entrepreneur, a public speaker, and the founder of the MH3 Collective, a collective that spans across marketing, business, education, and equity building. And most importantly, Mark is also a business partner in Sidekick. So I'm very excited to be co-hosting this episode with you, Mark, today. Welcome.
I thought you were going to call me the B team.
The B team? No, you're definitely A team. Part of the A team.
Kind of like the extra custard, not custard pie.
We just fly you in for the real important stuff, Mark. Today, with Mark, excited to talk about the new year, because believe it or not, 2026
scary, isn't it?
Around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Traditionally, the time of the year where businesses start planning for the next year, for Q1. Personally, New Year's resolutions, whether you like them or not, but would love to chat a little bit about what kind of this time of the year does for you, what you've seen in your career, in your past, with leaders around you, and how we can set ourselves up for success in 2026.
It's frightening to think it's 2026.
I know.
You know, I think we're all getting those ads now to buy new gym memberships, get new clothing, do all those amazing things. But I know you and I are going to talk about this. I like dates. I like rollovers. I think obviously there's the calendar new year, which we're all going to experience pretty soon.
Yeah.
And it's funny because since the last time you and I chatted, actually I got a call, I think it was a call on 3 days ago. So I was like, oh, we'd love for you to come and do like some New Year's resolution podcasts. And I was like, what's going on? I think Siri's been listening to us. Yes. And I think maybe today, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but for me, like resolutions are kind of personal. And so I think one of the things we should think about and have a conversation about is how do you separate kind of that personal, what Mark or Bonny are going to do as individuals. And I don't know, but if you do you do resolutions? Let's start with the basics here.
Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
So my follow-up question just died on the floor.
Sorry.
But if you did, would you share them with people?
I think yes. If I did, I would need someone to help me be accountable to them. And I think kind of just sharing things with others, what might help to do that. Mm-hmm. But it is admittedly also one of the things that I don't really like about it. It feels like something that's very like individual. Yeah. You do it for yourself. Yeah. And in a way, like, I mean, you should be able to hold yourself accountable to it. But in some research that I did, like still 80 to 90% of the resolutions tend to fall flat. Yeah. And there must be a reason for that.
Yeah, 100%. So I can't say I've never made resolutions. I don't tend to make them often. I certainly don't share them, but I do both as an individual think about what are the 2 or 3 things that I want to get done. But then I'm probably much more public. And when I say public, I don't mean to the whole world, but much more open in discussions with groups when it comes to like what is next year's plan. Yeah. And I think as we go through these eras where, I've been using this word precarity a fair bit, which I'm not even sure I can spell, but we'll talk about it. But, we're now sort of planning like weekly, quarterly, monthly, because who knows what's going to hit us next. But I think for me, if you just sort of step back and say a resolution, I actually think resolutions should be private, because I think if you can't actually get to your resolution yourself without having somebody coaching you or pushing you or holding you accountable or busting your chops, then I think you actually have, just quite frankly, an accountability habit issue. So as you know, I'm a little bit crazy, some might say anal, about the way I kind of track my life. And I sort of live in this world of like, today is today. Yeah. And then I look ahead on a bunch of milestones up to a year and back on a bunch of and I live in this kind of 2-year, always evolving pattern. I don't need somebody knocking on my, sort of mental door every day saying, Mark, have you done it?
Yeah,
have you done it? But I think resolutions are quite personal, but I think we should chat about like, what are the things that you're sort of sharing, whether it be with your team or your organization or broader context?
Yeah, and I think there's an important difference that you also already mentioned, like personal versus business. And then I think even in a business context, there might be things that from a personal growth or development as a leader you would want to do or that you aspire for the next year. And then from a business perspective, I think resolutions in my mind also somewhat equate to like the strategic planning and the goals that we set as a business. And just to throw in another stat, like
throw away, let's hear it.
80 to 90% of personal, I think that was based on personal resolutions tend to fail. But what I thought was even more shocking is like 67%, according to Forbes research, of strategic goals are not accomplished.
Oh my God.
Which is like, I'm just curious if there's a parallel.
Are they not accomplished because the organization tried to achieve the goal and failed, or are they just like abandoned? I guess that's for me the question. Because I think resolutions, we tend to think of somebody's going to go to the gym every day, or somebody's going to stop, drinking on weekdays, or Mark was going to be nice to people. Now we're getting kind of crazy, every day. We're in Fantasy Island. But you know what I mean? And then you just kind of stop versus like, I tried to lose weight and I failed because I didn't have the right fitness program. From a corporation, organization, enterprise standpoint, that 67%, I'm curious whether it's we tried and we failed, or we stopped trying, which I think are two different things.
Yeah, that's interesting to explore. I think the parallel between the resolutions and the business goals that I found was the reason they fail is that they're often from a personal resolution side of things, they're based on motivation. And not build around like systems, habits, patterns that you can kind of. So I think that's a little bit in the weight loss thing. You have the systems, the daily routines that actually kind of help you get there. But there's something similar happening in the business goals too, where it is what came up was misalignment between leadership teams. So great that we set those goals, but did we actually talk about that? Are we truly committed to them as a group? So kind of the individual versus collective again. But also the setting the goal, but not having the right systems, processes, habits, routines in place to really see them through. So whether it is we stopped trying or they truly failed, there might be a lot in that realm or of stop trying. But even before you know that it's happening, it's just kind of, you're not getting there because you're not focusing on the right small micro things to get you there.
And for thinking a bit about the company or organization or enterprise kind of setting its goals, one thing where I think a flaw is of resolutions is sometimes we come up with the resolutions like in December.
Yeah.
And I think any business coming up with new goals or new strategies in December has already failed.
Right.
Like you're too late.
Yeah.
I mean, you have your inputs from a quarter ago, 2 quarters ago, last year. You have the thoughts that you're thinking about. That being said, to your point, there's still a lot of people who are sort of rushing to the finish line to finalize the plan. So I think one of the areas that I'd be curious, even from your own background, to think about is first and foremost is how do those goals get shared on an ongoing basis so that by the time you do hit year end, it doesn't feel like a new plan or a new approach. At the same time, recognizing things are changing all the time. And I think the big thing for me between a resolution and a company goal is having that group conversation, however small or large that group is.
Yeah. And I think your point around like if you're starting to think about it in December, then you're too late. I'm a big believer of kind of that balance or combination of like long-term vision and goal. We need, I personally always need kind of this kind of horizon further out.
And what is your horizon? Like what's your definition of long-term? Because it's kind of like a piece of string. Like, how long is it, Bonny?
Yeah, that's true. And maybe I don't necessarily set a date to it. So there is a version where it's more like purpose, mission driven. kind of your
It's like a vision,
compass
like
vision.
it's always
And
out there. You're always
and you
pursuing.
might never really accomplish it. But I do also think about like, and it tends to be a year or like a 3-year and a year. Thinking about, but it's still like more guiding principles rather than a very set goal of like we need to hit X number of clients or revenue or whatsoever. I tend to treat them more as a guiding principle or like a direction rather than a harsh goal.
No, I like that. They're
And
aspirations.
Then, and because so many things are changing along the way, so I think it's good to have the anchor, but then the true, like more tangible, accomplishable things. We tend to do like, and you know this, like we follow EOS to a large extent, and we're in this quarterly 90-day pulse where every quarter we have this rhythm that we look back, we look at what we learned, and then we plan ahead and we adjust for the next quarter. And I think that helps for Q4 not to feel like this, let's kind of reset and we have to start everything over again in Q1. It's just kind of a rolling thing that we do.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I like about that is your aspirations or your visions are your long-term are kind of your ongoing North Star.
Yeah.
And here, you're kind of ongoing with your march. And I say that, and I made the comment earlier about, if you're starting your planning now, you're too late. But literally with one venture I'm involved with, which we'll go name with, like we actually had our FY 26 kind of planning session today. And I have to confess, I actually felt some anxiety of like one person's question was, are we still doing this? Because if we are, I need to get going on it for January. And my kind of reaction was, and this is me just sort of spitballing a bit as we go here, kind of made me realize that sometimes we need plans and sometimes we need like that are written, and then you need assumptive plans. Like people should assume that you should be continuing to do the things you're doing
until you're not,
right? And it's interesting how, I don't know whether it was school, which is not the same as a calendar year, or what it is, but we're kind of trained as human beings of, well, all of a sudden there's this magic date, December 31st, right? You think about, I tend to think back to school is the other new year of a business because summer unfortunately has a slowdown and all of a sudden people are back after Labor Day, or I don't know what people call it in Europe because there's no Labor Day, but
I guess it's back to school.
Back
like
to
September
school day,
1st
BTS, not to be confused with the pop band. We just went to K-pop. But I think that people need to understand, like, yes, you should be planning for next year, but you should also be working along here. So going back to your comment, and I was trying to ask you this question, when you think about like that annual plan, like what would you say are the 3 things people should be thinking about? It's like, okay, forget about the time, but like now we're planning for next year.
Regardless of like the year that we're in. I mean, going back to the moving from individual to collective, I think it's really good to start with like who are you serving? Who are your clients? What are they trying to accomplish? What's kind of on their agenda and roadmap for the upcoming years, especially kind of for us being in the consultancy world, professional services. We only succeed if our clients succeed, right? So we need to set the right markers to help our clients succeed. So that's the most kind of external facing one. Internally, it's actually maybe not that different. Like, what do we as a team need to kind of put our best foot forward to each individually be able to kind of contribute our unique values, but also how do we work together or work even better together next year to do the things that we set out to do. So there's an external and internal, but definitely like a collective, a togetherness, I feel like.
What I liked about your answer was about who we're serving, right?
Yeah.
Who's our external client, regardless of the business you're in. If you're in the smoothie business or the consulting
like
business,
a consumer,
right?
Yeah, that's true.
Who's your internal client, which is your customer or your colleagues, your partners.
Yeah.
And then I also think there's a kind of ecosystem player, which is like, who are your suppliers and stakeholders? And not to sort of jump around here a little bit, but grounding it in today, which is, the end of 2025. One of the things, this is non-scientific, but it's universal. One of the pieces of feedback that I'm getting is I'm gonna call it fear, but I'm gonna call it a small f fear. So not a crippling or panic fear, but I think there's this, what people keep talking about is there's this unknown, right? it's a bit of a cliche to say times are always changing because, of course, they're changing. Otherwise, we're dead. But I really think there's this interesting thing now where people are like, there's just the uncertainty level and the whiplash is so frenetic. And not that people are walking around paralyzed, but, on your podcast, you guys have talked about AI. And there's 3 different camps out there. Some people think it's the best thing ever for their business. Some people think it's going to cost them their job. Some think it's going to give them a competitive advantage. I was just meeting with a guy who I used to be on the board of one of his past companies that went public and he did well. And now he's launching a new venture. And one of the comments he made was, this is not going to be a business that's driven by an AI, but it's going to be a business that's optimized by AI. And, part of his pitch. Then over here, you have like geopolitics that are unbelievable, right? We've got wars all around the world, some that we talk about, others like, we don't talk about, right? Like what's going on in the Congo, and where more people are killed daily than have been in some of these other conflicts. You've got, the U.S. and Venezuela. You've got all these things. You've got the economy. Like, is our economy good? Is it bad? So fear might be the wrong word. And I know I'm rambling on a little bit. Yeah. Like there's a real, like, how can I forecast? That would probably be better way.
Yeah.
Like what's in my toolbox that allows me to forecast? Because, I heard you guys talk about this before, but like I think you made a comment that COVID, once we got into it, became good because we kind of just knew like the circumstances, right? Like until we're told otherwise, you're wearing a mask and, stay a hockey stick away, right?
I didn't know I still was supposed to wear a
mask. Yeah. But I think now it's this, it's a really interesting.
You don't know where it's going.
Yeah. And so I throw this out at you to say, as an experienced leader, so I'm coming to you as one of your, I now work for you, Bonnie. Okay. Like, Bonnie, I'm afraid.
Challenge.
Help me. Yeah, it'll be a challenge. Trust me. I'm not going to win Employee of the Week. But help me through this. I'm your collaborator. I'm your employee. I'm your client. Help me through some fear. Be my doctor.
Yeah.
Coach me through.
Coach you through.
Coach me.
I mean, before I go there.
Yeah. You're really worried about me working for you. I know. You're just like,
buying
I want to go to this chair.
to get myself through this.
Yeah.
The one of the components kind of as you're planning for the next year is definitely kind of that more macroeconomic, what's happening in the environment, and what are the things that you can predict and what are some of the things that you cannot predict. So I think where I would start is kind of where is that fear coming from? Is what are those kind of biggest uncertainties? Are they, whether they are kind of realistic or rational or emotional, it doesn't really matter, because any fear will impact kind of how you act and plan and how you behave. But we'll really try to kind of look at what are those uncertainties and what are the most impactful uncertainties for your business, and start looking into like what are the various different scenarios that can come to life, and for kind of to some extent plan for each of those different scenarios so that you kind of have something to fall back on once there is a bit more certainty in that. But usually what you see in going through an exercise like that some things that we label as uncertainty are not really uncertain. They might just not be the thing that you like very much.
So I think that's a great point, because I think you could dial back to 2018, 2019. There was uncertainty in the world, but we had growth, we had prosperity.
Yeah.
So we had technological change, but we thought we understood it. And probably our biggest fear is, am I going to win this account? Can I hire enough people? Will I get paid enough?
Yeah.
Whereas I think now the uncertainties are very different. They're warlike.
Yeah. So, and some of them you can also not plan for.
Right.
But I think there's also a level of accepting that is what it is, and maybe make your plans kind of, I still believe you have to kind of have that long-term aspiration to have some kind of anchor to work towards, but then try to break it down in the more foreseeable futures, right? Like 3 months out might be a bit more predictable than 6 months out. And as long as you kind of start building that rhythm of like grounding yourself in various moments in time, more frequently than once a year, to reassess where are we, what's happening, what did we learn in the last 90 days, what can we predict for the next 90 days, and just go on a bit more of a adaptive, agile cycle, so that you build habits and build kind of that and resilience. I think that's a bit of a
I love that word.
overly
It
used
is.
word,
It
but
is.
it is what we need, I think. And part of that, or part in that, is also, again, going back to that collective. And I know you're not a big fan of predictions, but when I looked at kind of what the
I want to hear your
resources,
predictions,
like,
actually, so I can go to the bookies and start
I
betting on
just
them.
have secondhand predictions
Let's hear
that I
'em.
stole from HBR Forbes Strategy Online. But one of them is around human-centric leadership. Again, a topic that we've been discussing here too, and how that is becoming the imperative for leadership. And what that means to me is that continuous balance between building an environment where people feel safe and that they belong, and that it's not kind of this risk of losing your job every other month. Truly creating an environment where people belong and are set up to thrive, so that they can add their unique perspectives, while at the same time also being like realistic and hold people accountable. And like, in order to run a business, you also need to accomplish your goals and get your results, right? So it is that continuous balance, but specifically that the human side, and kind of creating this environment where people are not paralyzed, or at least to a lesser extent, that we still continue to tap into each other's smarts and perspectives to make it work together. I think that together is something that now more than ever needs to.
So I'm going to go full Mike Tyson on you here, which is everybody had a plan until they got smacked in the face, right?
I was going to say, yeah.
Right? That's his famous quote. It's not a prediction, but I feel, and I'm not being a doomsayer, I think 2026 is going to be, it's my favorite word, worser than we've seen the last 6-7 years. I think we are headed on a collision course where it's either going to, explode, and even more heck's going to break loose. And I feel that for a few reasons, right? I feel like, back to wars, we're trying to put like the lid on the pot on a bunch of stuff happening around the world.
Yep.
I think we're overly optimistic. And I think even some of the things that look settled are less settled than we imagine. I think that you've got a U.S. Government that's on the run and worried about the midterms. So something's going to happen between those midterms next November.
Yep.
And we know the U.S. has a big... and then I think we've got the reality that you've got some economies around the world that are kind of like they're on tenterhooks, right? And we know that economic peril creates all sorts of backlash, and you name it.
Yeah.
And the underlying indicators, quite frankly, of the U.S. economy are really bad, right? So how do you toughen your teams up for, let's go glass half empty here. Like, to your point, human-centric leadership, but how do you toughen your teams up for, like, we're going to have, you said resilience. You and I talked about resolve. Like, how do we get them in shape without making them run and hide? Because that's the fear I'm sensing. Like, don't get me wrong, there's people out there doing well and financially, but there's a sense of like, the auto market could fall out, or this could fall out, or, the plans Canada's making to deal with the tariffs are going to take 10 years to implement.
Yeah, or AI. I recently read an article around the ROI on AI is not what people expect.
No, it's
to be
2%.
Right now, and
the KPMG study, ROI in Canada,
2%.
2% of the organizations that have implemented AI are seeing positive ROI.
Yeah, and lots has been invested, right? So there is this risk of this bubble being created that also might burst in 2026.
And along those lines, the 7 big tech companies are 40% of the S&P. So if they go, right, we're back to I lived through 2008. I don't think you were in North America at the time, but overnight it happened. I lived through 9/11. I lived through the early 90s.
Yeah.
So toughen up the teams.
Back to your question, how do you get your team?
Yeah, you've led teams for a long time.
Right.
Get them ready for the poop show coming up.
Yeah, and admittedly, I don't. I also don't have all the answers, right?
No,
so it is kind of, I think, still going back to creating the conditions where people can do what they do best.
Yep.
Help build confidence in people's own ability that they and we together can get through things.
Yeah.
So I think more connection points rather than less, to make sure that you kind of continuously stay in touch, and continuous kind of reflection and learning to show that even when things do not go as planned, we can figure it out. We kind of take smaller steps, but we'll figure it out together. So a lot of attention to the individual within the collective and making sure that everyone also has some level of confidence in themselves and in us as a group or in whatever organization there is to make it through together and not do a, like, my boyfriend always jokes about this, kind of when we were in a canoe and the water got a little wilder than I expected. I just did this.
Right.
Let's not do this.
Yeah.
And let's align on what we do and what kind of how we help each other through it. I think that's ultimately
and the data supports you, because it shows Gen Z and millennial colleagues like more frequent check-ins, so like more conversations. Right? People my age tend to be, no, we're over here, and a little more like, we've got a plan, we'll stick to it. But the data supports your comment, which is more check-ins. I think the other thing is just the mere fact we're having the conversation. Like, I think having the conversation, like, stuff could go wrong. We're going to hit choppy water.
Yeah. I think the not denying it and the transparency, the openness about what we don't know.
Yeah.
And that's what we often see in leadership teams too, that they're hesitant to share information because they don't have any information. But also in those scenarios, sometimes what might feel like oversharing or too much about the process helps a lot of people around you to just know that they're not being kept in the dark.
Yeah.
It's just dark out.
Yeah.
Right?
Ooh, I like that. Put that on a t-shirt. But you got me to make a prediction, which is, there's a win. But you were saying something earlier, which I liked, and I'd love to actually hear your thoughts on this more, because I'm taking notes, by the way, where you were talking about the different scenarios. So what's the spectrum of scenarios that people should create for 2026? Like, is it 5? Is it 3? Is it 10? And what's the best scenario they should look at, and what's the worst scenario they should look at?
Ooh, I think that really depends. I mean, this is a not an helpful answer. It really depends on the business that you're in. I think in terms of numbers of scenarios, I would always say like 3 to 5, because that's just something that's manageable and not overwhelming.
Right.
But the depth of them or what goes in it, I think AI is definitely something that should be on everyone's radar. And a choice to not do anything with it is also a choice, right? But at least think through it. And the other side is also true. I don't think you should kind of build a scenario where you're too dependent on AI in that case. But I go back to kind of when we think about scenarios, it is around like, what's the level of uncertainty and the level of impact on your business. So I think as a business, you can also not solve for the world's problems, right? So keep it close to what impacts your business and start building your scenarios from
and if
there.
you're using kind of classic quadrant scenario planning, then you throw those on the X and Y axis. And you say, up here, we have no control.
Yeah.
Down here, we have ultimate control. Probably neither of those are going to happen.
No.
But
and then you focus on it.
But I like that was a good answer. I like that 3 to 5.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There was something else that I wanted to bring up. When you said in preparation for this episode, you also said like, if you thought 2025 was crazy, then get yourselves ready for 2026.
Yeah.
But the Chinese zodiac calendar supports what you said too. The year of the fire horse.
Okay, what is a fire horse?
Well, I think
you and I both want to make a crack, and we could tell we're both like, no, can't say that in a podcast, so we're going to pull back. Let me ask a question again. Bonnie, please tell me what is
tell
a
me
fire
about the year of the
What
fire
is a fire
horse? Historically, some cultures believed, or might still believe, that women specifically that were
Right.
born in the year of the fire horse,
Right.
happens every 60 years, by
Yeah.
the way, would not make for great wives.
I know, I read this. That's why I wanted you to say it, because if I say it, I'm going to come across as...
And some go as far as they would kill their husbands. So
Right.
the last year of the fire horse, which
Yeah.
was 1966.
Yeah, good math.
There was a large decline or huge decline in birth rates because
Yeah.
people didn't want to get fire horse babies.
Right.
Anyway, that aside, the prediction still is a year of a fire horse comes with like disruption, reinvention, something big is going to happen,
Right.
and it's uncertain until it happens. So I think, we should get ourselves ready for the year of the fire horse.
Yeah. And, when we had this conversation, then I went down this rabbit hole as well, the fire horse. And yeah, birth rates were down. But next year's a great year to invest in funeral homes, just by the way, since all the husbands are going to be... Yes, I said that out loud. I don't think it's far-fetched, and I'm happy to go on record, and I'm not trying to be a doomsayer, but getting back to my prediction that we have the ingredients for a very tumultuous year. I think the flip side of that, because there's another side to every coin, is that if, for example, all those things that could go wrong, like if the dominoes fell one way, we have a catastrophe. The upside is they could fall the other way. So again, not a prediction. And I guess some people say, well, this is a big cop-out. But I think next year is going to be a year of extremes.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be Melbatos, middle, a plus 2% year. It's either going to be, we had some defining moment.
Yeah.
And some things about defining moments, like nobody would have really understood where COVID would have taken us, right? And that defining moment could be really bad or it could be really good.
Right. And for leaders listening to us right now, what would be your best advice to them in how to prepare for that?
Well, I love what you said earlier about like having lots of touch points. I think that if you haven't done scenario planning yet, so you and I started this conversation about New Year's resolutions and we got into planning. I think that it's not too late in December. One of the challenges of a month like December, it's like in August, the 12 months don't feel weighted equally, but I think December is an incredible opportunity to get the stuff done you want to get done for next year. But I think it's a great time as well to say, okay, let's build that continuum, the worst and best case thing we could possibly imagine.
Yep.
And then I get somebody else to push even further. And then I would map out, if this happens, how are we going to respond and how are we going to react? And what are those variables or those signal lights that are going to make you go in a certain direction? I had a conversation, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, maybe longer. Yeah, it must have been with a CMO who talked about the difference for them, Canadian CMO, of COVID versus tariffs. And his comment was, during COVID, he protected share.
Yeah.
And during tariffs, he's going to try to take share. And so here you have two unbelievably unpredictable instances that we really had no idea. There's no playbook how to deal with them. I mean, one of the things I think you and I, as we're talking, we're both thinking, what's this playbook?
Yeah.
The playbook we want doesn't exist.
No, we have to create it.
But I thought that's really interesting. Like over here, I built a wall and a moat, and over here I'm going on the offensive. So my advice would be, are you protecting share? Are you here to gain share? Are you trying to expand sales, or do you want to maximize profit? Do you want to secure lines of supply? Like, who would have known that in the pulp and paper business that we'd be running through toilet paper and paper towels and facial tissues, right, during COVID? Yeah. So that would be, for me, be like, where in your ecosystem could things be challenged? And so I can tell you in my own personal planning, because as much as you and I talked about being collaborative, I also, for my own sanity, have to look at everything and map it out a little bit. And I'm a little bit behind on my own personal 2026 planning. But even when I was doing, last night, I was doing my November review because I have a little personal system. And it was interesting because I love to look at what happened in this November, and then I'm looking at last November, and now I'm thinking about next November. And, one of the things that came really clear to me coming from last year to this year is I probably wasn't prepared enough last November for how goofy this year could be. Like
Yeah.
we weren't talking about, as Canadians, tariffs in 51 states.
No, that's
Wow.
true. Okay, so scenario planning is definitely part of it.
Yeah.
I think to bring it even kind of closer to home or like more tangible, we've talked about like frequent team check-ins, kind of
Yep.
really build your team for resilience, for
Yep.
lack of a better word.
Make them do push-ups.
Reflections, make them do push-ups. Micro habits for reflection, looking forward, and still keeping that kind of purpose alignment with that longer term vision, but maybe make that a bit more aspirational, not as quantified as your 30.
And I think to your point of
30-day,
long-term
90-day.
vision, don't lose sight of it. Like you're going to be there, right?
And it could really help you inform kind of that scenario planning. So I would love to go on for hours and hours.
Oh, it's okay. You can cut me off.
We gotta have to wrap it up.
I only put so much money in the meter for this podcast, so I can hear the ding, ding, ding. Your time's
but
up.
Who knows?
You
There
know?
might be a part 2 at some point.
I'm double parked.
My key takeaways from this chat with you, I would say, is 2026 is going to be a crazy year.
Mm-hmm.
Even more crazy, more unpredictable than what we've seen.
You want to see my fire horse t-shirt?
2026, the year of the fire horse, backs up that prediction. How to prepare for that is, don't wait until January for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of start thinking about what those various different uncertainties are, the impact on your business, what can you control, what can you not control. Think about the various different scenarios. And now is the time to, if you haven't started it already, start to build those rituals, habits, rhythms with your team to make sure that it's not a like, we plan now and then next year we look back and think like, 60% was not accomplished.
Right.
Make sure that it is a bit of an adaptive, cyclical thing that you do with your team and build up confidence and rituals through human-centric leadership. We always love to end our episodes with a challenge for our listeners too. And I was thinking a theme that came through was that individual versus collective and where to start if you start thinking about 2026. So my challenge for you as a listener would be to think through whose goals are you going to help move forward in 2026 and who's going to help carry yours. Think about that and use that as an input or an anchor to your 2026 plan. With that, we've come to the end of this episode. I want to thank you, Mark, for co-hosting.
Thanks
I think
for having
it was
me.
amazing. We had some really good insights to share with the audience. And as always, we would love to keep this conversation going. So put your comments on the podcast channels or hook us up on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how you're building momentum for 2026. See you next time.